So we're going to start with any questions you guys want to ask to each other. So seeing as you went first in the house, James, do you have any questions you want to ask Ellie?
So your idea for a Refreshers Week, yes, you already do a Give It a Go week, which is along the same lines, and it struggles from lack of students wanting to go to it and lack of societies wanting to take part. How would you deal with that here?
As far as I know, the Give It a Go week is a Durham SU thing. Yeah. So this would be purely in Collingwood, which I think makes it more personal. It's things that people know happen but don't necessarily know whether they'd enjoy. And it's something that we can really push as a college rather than trying to push it as a whole uni event. And I think that people react more to stuff which is based more within college than stuff which happens in town at the SU. Given that the JCR budget is already public and that the JCR and exec meetings minutes are all published on the JCR website, is transparency really an issue? Surely it's more of an issue of communication that people don't know where to find the information or its relevance to them.
The budget should be published. The budget is not. The budget is 2 years out of date currently, and while the minutes are there, they are not. They're not clear and they're not easily accessible. It's about making it easier for people to find it. At the moment, people have to dig through the different parts of the website to find the information that they're looking for. We can do that by simply telling them. It will make it much easier for people, and it will allow our communities to flourish and create greater interest in the positions within our community. You talked about introducing a two-tiered society system. As a president of a society, I can tell you it's incredibly hard work already to maintain a one-tiered society system, and I think that it's very difficult, and I think it would harm the inclusiveness of societies. How would you deal with that?
This again would have to be done on a case-by-case basis, and I appreciate that societies are hard to organise and you have so many people that you're responsible for. As tech manager, I have been responsible for people and held other roles at the same time. I think that a two-tiered system, you'd have to look at the structure of each society. So it might be for instance, wood players. You might have president, which is over everything, and then have two vice presidents, one for one tier and one for another tier. But again, it depends on the society and it depends on what levels, and it depends if you've got two tiers or multiple tiers. And I think that's something that I would sit and discuss with each society president.
We'll open up to individual questions. So we'll start with James. Does anyone have any individual questions for James?
Hello, James. You speak about the issues in this lack of transparency. Do you not think it's just a case of maybe no one really gives a shit? Sorry, pardon my French.
It's something that I believe actually really matters to us. Yes, at the moment people may not care, but that is because they can't find it out. We have to make the information easier to find out. At the moment, you have to dig through different tunnels, and Johnny is the only person that ever seems to know what's going on. And seeing, before I was on exec, I found it very difficult to find out what was going on, and I believe that this is something that is harming our community. So by making it easier to find out what is going on, we can engage people easier. At the moment, people have to work too hard to be engaged.
Yep. Hi, I'd like to agree with James that people don't necessarily know where to find it, but I don't think it's an issue of transparency. I think it's communication. And I think that if we encourage people to join in with more things, then people will give more of a shit. And we will have a less apathetic JCR.
Any individual questions for Ellie?
You go about, oh Jesus, sorry. How would you go about making it more communicated?
I would really like to encourage the use of the website, and I think this is something that people don't necessarily know we have. And I think that if you publish things that people care about, for instance, formal themes or formal booking times on the website, people get used to using it. And I think that's the way forward. Get people used to using it and then post more information so that people use it more.
I think, as I talked about, it's about telling people, trying to tell people face to face. We have the website. The website's a great tool, but the information is there already. So we have to tell people face to face. That is the only way to get information across effectively.
Any more
You mentioned in your manifesto that you were president of 2 societies, one of which is the Film Society, which at the beginning of this year, under assurance by you that it would be a success, college invested £12,000 into film, camera and equipment. How many meetings has this society has, and can you justify the spending that was made upon it, with it?
The society, I was actually president of another film society, the University Film Society as well. So that society is trying to get off the ground. We've now found a president. The plan was never for me to be president of it. The society has had 1 meeting, however, it is coming. We now have a plan to roll it out next term with further meetings and getting it going properly, kicking on for it next year. It is something that is a work in progress. The camera, which is being used now, is actually a resource for the JCR anyway and was not purchased with JCR funds, was purchased with college funds as a view to a future resource.
Is there a final question for individual question for Ellie?
Having not been a member of the exec, how do you think you can go to this position as president?
So I'm really keen, and I've been to exec meetings before we were allowed to speak. And I've seen it go from not being able to speak and having to send in a written thing to now you're allowed to be invited. And I know how the execs run, and I've been involved in so many different parts of like the college life that I don't feel that having not been on exec is a disadvantage to me in any way.
Right, let's move on to general questions. Are there any questions people have for both presidential candidates? Right.
Can I go now? So could you give me an example of where you've played a key role in a big long-term project that's introduced changes to the JCR, please?
So, as senior SU rep, I've tried to make sure that we are able to represent our views effectively to the JCR. At the start of the year, we ran an exam feedback motion, which we surveyed the whole of the JCR, and this was actually more of a university-wide change to mandate the university to give feedback on all exams, all departments, which is something they don't do. I believe this was a real change that I've made through the course of my year and through the course of my exec role.
Hi. So one of the other things which hasn't come up yet is I'm heavily involved with the college library. So I started there in my first year as a college librarian, and since then, no, not college librarian, a student librarian where you volunteer. And then I'm now a college librarian and employed by college. And through this role, I've seen so many changes. It's gone from a room of books where people barely ever visit to now it's nearly always got at least, I'd say, 8 people, which is really good for our library. And this is something that I've worked so hard on, and I think that it has been massively improved. And this has been across the course of 2-3 years. And this is, yeah, that would be my project. It's my baby.
More questions? Laura?
So both of you have seen the day-to-day life of a JCR president, thanks to Tori. What made you want to do it?
It's an interesting one. When I first got to college, like Collingwood, in my freshman year, the first person I met was Caroline Hickey. And for those of you who haven't met her, she's the most incredible person and my college mum. And she showed me to my room. And since then, like, I've really, really been involved with college life. I also shared a floor with Jake Hooker, who was our president before Tory. So I watched him go from chair to pres, and I watched Tory go from services manager to pres. And it's something that I've always wanted to do since fresh year, since watching Jake apply, and now like it's actually really weird being up on stage asking you guys to support me in something that I've waited so long to try for.
It's a chance to give back to the community. Collingwood has been able to give me personally and all of us so much. And I believe that president is a role that involves facilitating the JCR to be successful and facilitating the community within the JCR to achieve its best. And I think that I would really like to be able to give back to Collingwood and give back some of the passion and the time that other people have given me.
Any more questions? Molly?
Okay, sure. One of the biggest problems that the JCR suffers from is having what we'd like to call the one-year shelf life, where we have sabbatical roles, particularly the president and other exec members that aren't subs, whatever. You're in your position for 1 year. The first few months you spend figuring out what the hell you're doing, and then the last few months you kind of get exasperated and give up, and it means that a lot of progress is stunted. So I was just wondering what you think you could try and do in this role to try and combat that, and if you're prepared for it.
So I think that Tori's 5-year plan, which she implemented in the last JCR meeting, is a really good way of doing it. It serves a very effective handover. It's also about making the most of your handover time with the previous president to make sure you're able to hit the ground running. Having been on the exec this year, I've been able to witness most of what is going on and understand the changes that Tori's made, so that hopefully I'll be able to keep them going, as well as coming in with my own new fresh ideas. At the end of my term, I would make sure that the handover is very detailed and try and make sure that the 5-year plan is kept up to date with what we're doing, to make sure that there is always a document and the next president would be able to continue the changes that I've been making.
Yeah, like James says, the 5-year plan's a really good way of doing this. But as well as this, like, I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm in college nearly every day. So I notice when things change, whether it's a poster going up on the notice board or new things happening. And despite not being on exec, I have been to the meetings. I've read through the minutes of the meetings I've missed. Like, it's something I have been involved in, and I have sat in Tori's office like through days where she's, you know, people come and drop in, and I understand what, like, the role and the part it plays in college, and I really do feel that I'd be able to start as soon as my term starts.
What do you envisage being the hardest part of the role, and how do you think you're going to overcome this?
It's a really good point. I think the hardest part would be not overcommitting, because as part of the role, you support everyone within the JCR, and as part of that, I know I do say, yeah, we'll do it, to a lot of things, and I think that overcommitting and making sure that you do delegate stuff is really important, and I think for me, personally, that would be the hardest part. And then more generally, I think the hours that you work, it isn't a 9 to 5 job. You have to be here when you're needed, as you're needed, and that's, you know, it could be, 5 a.m. clear up for spring ball, or it could be, 3 a.m. when you get a call from someone else's welfare saying they've got one of your students. Like, you have to be here around the clock, and it's not something where you can be like, nah, I'm off duty, sorry.
Yeah, I would echo Ellie that keep making sure that when people come to you asking for things, that you've balanced out what you should be doing, and trying to make sure that you're delegating, trying to make sure that you're facilitating the right things in college. I would also say just trying to keep on top of the workload, and trying to keep a clear direction throughout the year, trying to make sure that all the changes that you're making are achieving the right goal. I'd say that's going to be the hardest part, because during the middle of the year it can be very difficult to get lost in the detail, so keeping a view of the overall picture is probably the most important.
In the recently completed student survey, about just over 90% of our respondents felt that it was the position of the JCR, and specifically the JCR president, to challenge the university over the fees and the division of funds. How do you feel that you would approach this?
So having been part of the SCU this year and working with them, I've been able to see their opinions on how they do it, and I think that using PresCon, which is where all the JCR presidents meet together, we would be able to create an effective body that can come as one voice from all the colleges to be able to challenge the university on the fees. Is something that I think the student survey is a really good start, getting people's opinions, giving us facts to base our opinions on, and making sure that we can come to the university with facts prepared and a proper challenge to them. I think it would be about preparation and then making a lot of effort as a big group of colleges to succeed.
Yeah, I agree with James. I think that PresCon would be a great way to do this, but I also feel it's not just the president's role, it is the role of the college as a whole, and more importantly, I think it should be led by the DSU rep, Durham Student Union rep, not DSU rep, it's not a thing. And I think that if we could get a group together of maybe using PresCom and all the colleges' DSU reps, then I think that would be the way forward, rather than trying to pin it just on one group of people across the colleges. I think it needs to be a larger group saying everything, because everyone agrees it just needs to be heard.
The lesser known half of this job is actually taking yourself out of Collingwood, because Collingwood isn't your only responsibility. You are also there to represent Collingwood at PresCom and work with PresCom to make improvements across JCRs. This year, we're currently working on changing the laundry fobs and improving laundry facilities and increasing minority representation across JCRs. What ideas do you have to bring to PresCom that would improve the university as a whole and not just focus at Collingwood?
It's a very good question. I don't know in depth as much about other colleges as I do about Collingwood, so it would be something that I would have to discuss with other colleges. And that's really all I can say on it.
I think something that we've been discussing recently within the exec committee is about the disciplinary procedure within colleges. It's something that it seems to be very random across other colleges. It could be something that would be standardized across colleges. We've been having our own difficulties with it. I think that if you standardize it and if you allow all the colleges to work together, then it is a much more succinct system that would achieve much more success than we currently do.
Love these mics. So the president is technically, under the standing orders, the head of the welfare committee. Do you guys see this as a figurehead role, or do you see it as an active position that you hold in college? And as such, do you think you should attend welfare committee meetings and drop-ins? Do you think you should hold drop-ins? Ooh.
I think that is something that would partly be down to the discretion of the current female and male welfare officers. I think that it should be more than a kind of, I can't even think of the word, figurehead role, that's a word. Figurehead role, however, I don't think you should be holding drop-ins, although I do think the president should definitely be welfare trained. If the female and male welfare officer wanted me to attend welfare committee meetings, then I would, but I would very much submit to their wishes. They have the experience on this.
I think welfare is an incredibly important role in college, and although it's not on my manifesto, and I didn't mention it on in my HUST, it's something that I really want to see become like more normal within college. And for this, I'd want to sit on the welfare committee. I don't think it's appropriate, though, for me to be holding drop-ins as president, because I feel it puts too much pressure on the president and on the student who's coming to see them. I do think it's more of a figurehead role, however, that shouldn't mean that I'm not prepared to take it on if that's necessary in whatever situation that comes up.
Josh.
As president, you'll be heavily involved in finances. Do you think the current system of JCR allocations is fair? And if not, well, how would you think about changing it?
I don't know how I'd change it. I think it's as fair as it can be at current, but it's something that I would look into and talk through with the exec if they had any particular feelings either way, but it's not something I'm looking to change immediately.
I think that there are aspects of it that work very well, but I think that we could perhaps look to moving slightly more towards a model that the SU use with a dedicated grants committee that is a bit more formal than the one we have now at the moment. It seems slightly random, so I think that doing that would give good transparency and allow the societies to make sure that their applications are tailored, to make sure that they can get the best out of the resources that the JCR has.
Final question, Tori.
What area of the JCR do you think is most dysfunctional currently and requires your most attention over the summer of this year?
I would say it's the spaces available to the JCR. At the moment, places like the Barnard Void are a mess, as well as downstairs. I believe that we could massively improve the function of the JCR by cleaning up the spaces, working with all the different people who are involved to make sure that they are able to get the best out of the spaces using the Bailey Room. I'm on the Bailey Room working group, and we're already trying to improve that. So I believe that improving the spaces that are available to the JCR will have the biggest improvement, and people will be able to see the biggest improvement over the summer.
space is an issue, but I think that that's because societies don't communicate. They don't communicate with sports, so you have cheerleaders trampling on Ents stuff, which they spent hours making, and equally you have Ents spilling paint on cheerleading mats, which are really expensive. And I think that through communicating more between each society and the sports, I think you'll be able to sort out so much more of the JCR, and I don't think there's one specific place, as it were, or area. I think it's communication as a whole across everybody.
Right, well, thank you very much.